It's been great to see Frank here. I was at their game actually the other night against Sheffield United. Absolutely brilliant performance. Top of the table, 4 points clear. You must be delighted for him.
I'm delighted for him. Yeah, I think at the start of the season, I worried a little bit about Coventry. Not to say I thought they were going to drop off, but after losing the playoffs in the manner that they did after such a strong finish to the season, and then obviously they lose Sheaf. I was worried they might lose Jack Redoni as well. And you start to say, right, take that heart out of midfield. How are things going to go? But fair play, they've just kicked on another gear. And they've not added too much to it. You've got likes of Victor Torp that's playing more regularly, I guess, now Sheaf's gone. He's actually scoring goals as well. He's more of the holding midfielder, controlling midfielder, but I think he's got 6 goals this season. Hadji Wright scored 8 goals. Thomas Asante scored 10. So when you've got that in your team, there's a confidence, there's a belief. Having maybe the experience that I was worried they had might be for the best for them, in the fact that they've missed out, yes, but now they're more determined than ever to get themselves over the line. And Frank, with his experiences as well, having lost one at Derby and lost one at Coventry, will be definitely third time lucky looking to get over the line.
Of course, Coventry had a lot of success under Mark Robins. So unlucky not to get promoted. Of course, they lost on penalties to Luton, and then of course the FA Cup semi-final that everyone's still talking about that goal that should have been at the end. And they started off slowly, didn't they, last season under Mark? But Frank has got a tune out of them since coming in. What was it that he did, do you think? He obviously inherited a good squad, but what was it that he did, do you think, from day one?
It's hard to say because I speak to Frank obviously a bit, but I don't like to particularly ask him, but he's I think he's just instilled a level of find out what players are good at. I guess sometimes when a manager's been there, even though he's been successful for so long in Mark Robins, who was a brilliant manager here, sometimes a new voice, a new face, and particularly with it being Frank Lampard, which we think of as the player, when he speaks, you're going to listen. So he's come in, he's brought his staff in, that again is fresh ideas, and I think the group of players that he's got, probably just at that right moment of their careers, all of them, that they are old enough that they've got a bit of experience, but young enough to still take on information and be able to absorb it. And the way that he's approached it is, he's done stuff at other clubs, he's done stuff and he's gone in with a fresh pair of eyes and he said, right, if I'm going to play a 3 at the back today, I'm going to play a 3 at the back. I'm going to play a 4. And that's the thing with Frank, he's got the humility to be able to, as a modern manager nowadays, to not go in and say, this is how I'm going to do things, I'm non-negotiable. It's quite flexible, and I think that's a big thing for the team is, yes, he can play a 3 this today, he can play a 4 the next day. But the fact he keeps them guessing as well with the strength of the squad, he keeps them all on their toes as well. I think the fact that always when you go to a new club, if you start well, which he did, and you manage to keep that going for the sustained period he has, everyone buys in. And obviously they've bought in last season, they've come into this season, and it just seems like it's just continued that conveyor belt of success.
Yeah, because of course when they lost to Sunderland in the playoffs, I actually thought they were unlucky in both games.
Yeah.
Could have won both games really. Just those 5 margins and a bit of luck, I suppose. But sometimes you get that hangover, don't you? And he's been able to galvanise them during pre-season, so they haven't, had a downturn or a slow start.
Yeah, but that's it. I said when I spoke about the manner they lost the playoffs, it literally was that they dominated both games. So over 100 and what had it been 210 minutes, they were the better team pretty much. But back pass from Van Eerwijk and unbelievable Ballard header that saw him out. But Sunderland won't be complaining about that. They're now sitting in the Premier League and sitting in the top 4. So they're not going to complain about it. It's about getting over the line. And that's the difference is for all the great work they put in, when it came to the crunch football of cup part of the football, they unfortunately fell short. But they'll want to put that right. And this season, if they can get themselves in the automatic places, they won't have to worry about lady luck come the playoffs.
Yeah. Now, of course, you worked with Frank at Derby County, so you saw firsthand what he was like. Can you just give us some anecdotes about what happened when he went into Derby, what it was like to play for him, how he got the best out of the players? Obviously, again, very unlucky, lost in the playoff final.
I think with Frank, it's a strange dynamic in my relationship because I was his captain, yes, but I actually didn't play much for him because after the first game, I had a slight hamstring issue. I was out for about 4 or 5 weeks. Then when I came back, I ruptured my Achilles after 2 games. So my relationship from Frank is almost from being beside him. Whenever there was a training session, I'd be stood by the coaches or whatever it is when I'm watching. So I got to see more his side than from a playing perspective. But what he was is when he first came in, first job, for everything that he'd done in football as a player, he still had that slight nerves because it was his first job. He knew how big the opportunity was. But soon he got to grips with everything. He had an excellent coach in Jody Morris back then, who was with him at the time. And they almost had that good cop, bad cop Jody Morris was more the in-your-face kind of, will tell you exactly what he thinks within 5 seconds if you're doing it, whereas Frank was quite measured. Frank could cut you with his words, very intelligent, obviously, could cut you with his words, but he'd rarely raise his voice. And that dynamic worked really well. But then you get the likes of Fikayo Tomori, Mason Mount, Harry Wilson come in to add to that squad of experience, like Premier League players in that squad. And it was just a great blend. But I don't think people give him enough credit for that, because obviously, yes, we had a squad that had been in the playoffs before, but to go in your first job, get to a playoff final and to lose to a Villa side that was stacked. You know, they were stacked as well. It was an easy job. And then, you know, he goes on to Chelsea in an embargo. You know, the way the job he did there, finishing in the top 4 was fantastic, as well as bringing players through, the likes of Reece James, Mason Mounts, Tomori's, Tammy Abrahams. So after that, you know, people, again, he goes to Everton, maybe doesn't work out, but have Everton progressed much since then? Probably not. So I think the job he's doing now is excellent. I think judging him on his championship career as well, because this currently is a championship job, and in the championship he's doing formidable.
People forget, don't they, of course, Thomas Tuchel, when he won the Champions League with Chelsea, that was Frank's team.
Yeah, it was Frank's team. I think they were in the quarter-final stage maybe when he was let go. So listen, they still had to go a few more rounds to go and win it. So I'm not going to give Frank the credit for that. But in terms of the experiences that those younger players that were in that team had came at a time where Frank and Jody, from Jody's time, having worked with them in the under-21s and the under-19s, it was the foundation to what built that. And I'm not trying to, again, give Frank too much credit, but there needs to be a level of remembrance of what he did at that football club.
I like the way as well he dealt with the Bielsa stuff, you know, with the Spygate. Do you remember that? What was the first you heard? When was the first you heard about that, by the way? Were you actually there that day when they caught the perpetrators?
Yeah, well, I remember it specifically because I was injured, so I was sat having treatment, sat on the table. Then all of a sudden, I start seeing the lads streaming in from training, like walking into training. I'm thinking, like, just about 20 past 11. I'm like, they finished quick. Or second thought is like, someone got injured, like a bad injury that they've had to come off the pitch. I'm thinking the worst. And then someone said, "Oh, there's someone in the bushes." So, what do you mean there's someone in the bushes? Someone's watching training. I was like, so what? Said, no, he's got Leeds tracksuit on. So then it was just becoming a thing. I was like, no, don't be silly. And then literally then obviously all the stuff started getting released about, obviously he was being held by the police and all that kind of stuff. And it just became a running joke then. And then the funnier thing after that was like, you think I'd probably just get squashed after that. But it was Bielsa's interview where he did the PowerPoint presentation of all the teams he spied on. I actually enjoyed that because I thought, you know what? If you're going to do it, he's said it with his chest. He's done it full throttle, and yeah, it was quite impressive, the documentation that he had. But yeah, listen, it was just an etiquette thing, I guess. It wasn't really a rule. In this country, we don't do that. Where he's from in South America, that's a known thing to do. So he didn't apologise. He wasn't ever going to apologise because that's the way he was. But it did add that extra spice, particularly when it came to that playoff semi-finals.
What I found funny about all that as well, the guys that they caught, I think it was 2 of them, they both had their Leeds tracksuits on. It wasn't like they were, you know, behind enemy lines and all cohort.
Yeah, they could have been smarter and just hide themselves a dog for the day and just wore some normal clothes and just pretend they're watching training. But to have your Leeds tracksuit on, your Leeds, I think they had their Leeds ID or something on them as well. So yeah, it wasn't great. I don't really know why the police were able to arrest them, because they weren't on the premises. They were technically in the bush. But still, I guess if you're the police and you see someone randomly standing in the bush, you're going to check on it. So
so Curtis, it's actually Stoke versus Coventry this weekend, and Mark Robins, of course, went in the other direction. It's worked out well for both clubs, hasn't it? Because Stoke, of course, second in the table under Mark. Yeah,
well, Stoke are doing really well this season. Last season, when he went in, was still difficult. You know, they still were hanging in and around the relegation spaces. But the difference with a Mark Robins team is once he gets a pre-season, he's able to put his effect on the team, see the job they're doing. I never would have had Stoke finishing there. I think Stoke in their whole time back in the Championship haven't finished in the top half. So that shows that the expectation of that football club was massive, and it still has been massive because of the money they've spent. But maybe now it's starting to dwindle. But with Stoke being in those positions with Mark now, the belief will come back, and it maybe becomes a little bit of pressure. But doing a fantastic job. Obviously, playing against Coventry is always going to be a special game for him. But there's no love lost. He wants to win a game of football. Coventry won a game of football. Afterwards, they can hug and kiss after that. But he's very well respected in these parts of the world. But they've all got a job to do.
We're at an EFL Week of Action community event here at Coventry. Been a very humbling afternoon, hasn't it?
It has. I think Frank Lampard said it best. Football is a bubble. You know, us as footballers, us as players and managers, sometimes we get stuck in what we're about, what happens out on the green stuff out there, and you sometimes forget about what put you there. So to be able to come to these kind of events, EFL in the community, obviously this is the week of action where everything gets pushed into the media, of course, but things are happening all year round. So to be able to be here, be part of it is a great honour for me, but it's just a reminder that yes, these fans, they come and support us on the weekend, sometimes as players and as other fans as well, we support our community as well. And I think projects like, for instance, the boxing for mental health at Derby, there was a lady that, they have a heart rehab centre at Derby. In Hull, I did things with cancer charities. You know, just whatever the cause is, there's no cause too big, no cause too small, and clubs will always listen and try and help their community. So I think that's a big thing for in terms of the modern game, and that especially if you're a current or former footballer, to be involved with as well.
And Curtis, you had a long and illustrious playing career at various levels, and you know, when you went to such events and you met and you did all your community work as all clubs do and players get involved in, what were the ones that struck out most for you? I mean, were there ever any moment when you really took a look at yourself and thought, Christ, if I think I've got problems, I'm having a laugh?
Well, yeah, there's a touching moment where I worked with the Teenage Cancer Trust. I actually became an ambassador for the Teenage Cancer Trust and worked with young, obviously, teenagers that were suffering. And there was a young man named Rob Brown, who, when I first initially met him, I was there to see one of his friends off because he was in remission. Yeah, kind of just support them. And then, unfortunately, Rob got ill himself, even worse, and then Rob eventually passed away. From there, I became close to the family. I was there, helped and carried his coffin. So when you talk about things that can change your life, change your perspective, you know, I'm just a footballer. If I lose on Saturday, I might get hammered by the fans. My teammates might be annoyed with me. The manager might drop me. It's not life or death. So there's a lot more going on in life. And sometimes, yes, it's all good that you might be doing well in your life, and there's things that you can be happy for, of course, but there's always something else around the corner. So always just be aware of that, and always have the humility to not think everything's rosy everywhere you go.
Frank Lampard, your former manager, who spoke before, you know, at the event, he was saying that when, you know, fans cheer particular players and they have that affinity with a certain player, it's not just because they're a good player, it's usually because they've got ingrained into the community and that fans realise that, they appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, and I think that's something I learned as a young captain. Whilst you take care of what's on the pitch, and obviously you might be admired for what you do on the pitch, as a whole-rounded footballer nowadays, you want to represent that football club as a whole. So that football club means, you know, you go into community things, you're being visible and trying to help out with those kind of things. And like I said, what Frank said about it is so important, because I've always said 5-10 minutes of my time with a fan group, be it a group of young lads, teenagers that are playing football, to give my time up might mean nothing to me, but to them it might mean the world. It might inspire one of those to go out and play for Derby or wherever it is. So I think it is so important that you just remember your kind of roots, where you come from, and always try to be helpful.